Hey everybody, and welcome to the Alabama Take. I'm your host, Corey Hanna. On this, our first episode of the podcast, we'll be talking with Louisa Amber Murray from The Bear.
Do I sound like an asshole? Legally, you have to tell me if I sound like an asshole.
You do not sound like an asshole. I might sound like an asshole. I don't know why I decided this is a good idea.
I hate the sound of my voice, and I don't know why I decided this was a good. You're lucky I like you, pal.
I just thought you requested walk-up music, so.
My agent was unclear on the song choice.
I tried the Wu-Tang Clan name generator.
Mm-hmm.
Just put in like my name, and it was like Foolish Commander or something like that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right, so I guess let's start off and talk about The Bear. Did you do anything musically before The Bear was in existence?
Not in an official capacity, I guess, but yes.
Okay, like in a band, I guess, or were you just piddling around? Like, yeah,
mostly I was writing music, and I had some family members who played like in bluegrass bands and things. So I was sort of involved in music in different ways, but not in a real big girl band yet.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question. Was like when you guys play live, you play several different instruments. Like you might just be singing, or you might play ukulele, or I've seen you with the banjo, pianos, and everything else. Like, were you self-taught?
Yes.
So you just were like, hey, I'm going to go buy this instrument and learn it my damn self.
Yeah. I think that should be obvious from my poor playing that I'm self-taught, yes.
Come on. You got to give yourself a little more credit for that. So do you prefer to write, I guess, on one instrument over the other?
I usually write on like a keyboard, piano, or guitar or banjo. I guess I don't. I think the keyboard's easiest. So if I have one lying around, I'll usually just pick out chord progressions and things on that.
Right. Does the subject of the song or the melody that you already, like you come up with one or the other first, or does that dictate which instrument you think you write on?
I don't really think I have one specific way that it normally happens. I keep like a notebook with ideas, both like melody and like lyric ideas going pretty much all the time. So I just kind of wait for something to happen.
So do you do most of the songs by yourself, or do you call in Nathan as well?
I've never really co-written. We did one song on Overseas and Under. Nathan had written the song Dark Star, and then but the way he had it was totally different. I think the verses were actually like a bridge or something, so I just took the song one day when he wasn't there, and I rearranged it totally, and then wrote a verse, and then I said, here, what is about this? And he was like, yeah, that sounds better. So that's the only instance in which we ever co-wrote anything.
There's a dark star deep in my heart, bitter cocaine that's always falling apart. At night we sit and talk at the bar, where we drown our thoughts in a flood so warm.
There are a lot of literary references, like the name The Bear, I know we took that from a Faulkner story.
Mm-hmm.
So do you draw a lot of your influences from fiction, or is it just like random stuff that you think would make for a good story in a song?
I'm a pretty avid reader. I think most of my inspiration comes from reading, and I read a pretty wide variety of books. So I think that's probably my biggest, but I'm also really bad about just eavesdropping into strangers' conversations and then just making up stories about their lives based on those conversations. So I have a lot of songs that are about that sort of thing.
I think Jason Isbell said the same thing one time.
Oh, really?
Because he said all of his songs are true. They may not be his story.
Sure.
He said it's either a family member or just somebody he overheard in a bar or something. Mm-hmm. Especially, I guess, being from Alabama.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of crazy shit. So, but you and Nathan are married, and you started out as a duo before you started adding members. Did you specifically start performing like with other members, knowing that you were going to make a record, or was it just something you guys were like, hey, we want to bring in other people and build up the sound? Or How did that all happen?
In 2008, Nathan and I started playing as a duo. He had played guitar a lot of his life, and he had written a few songs, and I had written tons of songs and didn't play any instrument very well, but just a little bit of a few things. And then, so we were playing shows back when the tavern was still open. We played there pretty frequently, and just random other things as a duo, like when Billy Reed's store opened here. We did that sort of thing just around town. And then we had known Ben Tanner for a little while at that point. I don't remember even how we originally met, but he started playing keys with us, so then we played as a trio for a while. And then it was right around that time that the Civil Wars, I knew that they were about to be a thing. I knew John, and I think I'd heard some of their tracks or something before the album came out, and also around that time there was tons of other like folk duos cropping up out of the woodwork, you know. So I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore. And plus I had, it's only so much you can do with, you know, 2 to 3 people. Right. So, and I really, if anybody's ever listened to any of our music, you know that I don't have an attention span for one type of song. So yeah, so we then grew the band, added a rhythm section. That was Ben Stedman and Kyle Minckler. Right after the first album came out, actually, our album release show, I believe Daniel Stoddard played with us. He didn't record.
At Billy Reed's shop upstairs. Yeah.
So then after that, Daniel was a permanent member, too.
I couldn't remember if he was on the first record or not.
He didn't record on the first record. And I think that was right around the time that we met him originally.
I think the first time, I don't know if I had seen you guys live before, and this may have been when I actually met you and Nathan, was when we did that very first live from the Shoals session at Ben's house studio.
I think we met before because of me singing backing vocals in Doc's band.
I do remember at one point, like, the Bear was essentially Doc's band, but minus Doc, because at the same time that was also, shortly after that, I think when the Pollies and Belladere and Lauderdale all shared like 4 members.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun trying to book shows.
Because Daniel was in all 4 bands at one point. Daniel Stoddard is who we're talking about, a.k.a. Toots
Magoots.
Toots
Scoot
Magoots.
them boots.
That's right. But he played in all 4 bands, and that was a nightmare for everybody to try to book practices.
Yeah.
And shows. But it was also kind of cool because everybody was kind of back and forth. But you also made that first record in that same house where we recorded that first live from the Shoals session. Because the first record is a lot of like folksy, so almost like Southern Gothic type tales, it sounds like, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of swing element almost, like in the way that Kyle played the drums on some of them. On the next record, you guys went a little further in terms of like there were some pop songs like with Darling Boy and He's Not Mine, and then some almost like bluesy and soul with like I Want, and then I Got a Man, but that was on the first record. So do you think that having those guys in the band allowed you to expand your sound in that way, or?
Well, I had written most of those songs before they were in the band, but then I just had the actual opportunity to play them the way. Right. Because I keep a lot of songs in my pocket if I don't think that they're going to be able to be, you know, as good as they could be. Right.
So as you're writing a lot of them, there's a ton of different sounds and different instruments and just different soundscapes. Do you have a lot of that stuff in mind as you're writing, or are those things that once you get the basic tracks down, you're like, we need this, like a xylophone type thing? Or how does that work usually with you guys?
I think both. Some things happen in the studio, and especially when I'm working with Ben, who recorded both of our full-length albums. I think because we work really well together, and we have really similar work ethics and things, so I think a lot of things kind of pop up in the studio, and then we try them out, and they're good or they're terrible, you know, either way. Right. But then sometimes I have a really set idea, like for Darlin' Boy specifically, I wrote and played the bass part and then made somebody re-record it because I ain't a bass player. But like for those sorts of songs, I have very specific ideas. I even told Kyle what I wanted the drum beat to sound like, so. Right.
What did I do before you? What will I do now? I won't be happy. I was never happy anyhow. me, but for you, I'm just another.
So a year or so ago, I guess, when you moved to Portland for a job,
It was Eugene. Eugene, Oregon, yeah.
That's right. Why did I think it was Portland? But I knew it was Oregon somewhere. But you moved there, and the bear went on like a brief hiatus or hibernation or whatever. So you moved back, and I know that the lineup has changed quite a bit. Ben and Kyle both had kids and decided they didn't need to be on the road or spend as much time with bands and stuff. So are you still writing a lot? Do you think you guys will ever do another record as the Bear? Or?
Well, when we played that Farewell for Now show, I was exhausted, and I was like, we'll see if I can ever muster the energy for this type of thing again. But the longer that we've played one show, we did one just, we'll only do it because it was for Donnie. Donnie Fritz was playing a show with Christine Ullman, and it was just going to be a really good show. And we only had to do kind of an acoustic thing, so we hopped back out for that one show during Handy Fest. I would like to do one more album with the Bear and then be officially done. I didn't want to, call the band quits and just kind of, petered out. That just wasn't a satisfying way to end a lot of good times. So I really feel like I'd love to do one final album. It just I had a lot of health problems for a while, and the cost of that, and then finding people who actually have the time to play on it and replace the players who aren't really playing anymore. So it's just the matter of figuring all that out.
Yeah.
So
well, it sounds like you're still writing a lot, so
yeah, not
that's
as
good.
much as I did, but yeah, I still write pretty frequently.
I guess a lot of that would probably depend on Ben's schedule, because he's a busy man. When he's not with the Shakes playing keys, he's in the studio recording or producing or whoever else.
Yeah, we would want to do it with Ben since we've done pretty much everything else with him at this point, so it would feel wrong to do that without him.
He was also, for those that don't know, he was in pretty much every Shoals band at the time as well. I don't think he was ever really in Doc's band, Doc Daly's band.
No, he played a few shows with him, though.
Yeah, that sounds right. I know he was on the record and stuff because he made Doc's first two records.
Right.
But he was in the Bear, he was in Lauderdale briefly. Belladere and the Pollies.
Was he an official member of the Pollies? I don't know. I
think so.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of in and out.
Okay.
Because they were on that very first Live from the Shoals session that night too.
Okay.
And it was John Davis, Chris James, Jay Burgess, and Ben. And then Ben was all over that first record and the second record, I think, too. Between Ben and Daniel, they were in pretty much every Shoals band for a while. And Dylan LeBlanc, he toured with Dylan. He toured with John Paul White. So yeah, he's pretty much played with everybody at one point or other.
I feel like we all have at some point, almost,
Right.
We've done, in some way, contributed to most of the projects in the area.
Hey, we need a fill-in for a show. Somebody come play with us.
Yeah.
Come be on this record.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So I noticed you posted a picture not too long ago from Jimmy Nutt's studio. Were you just doing singing backgrounds on somebody's demos or something? Do you do a lot of that these days?
I do when anybody wants me to, pretty much. I love doing backing vocal work. So, yeah, I pick up sessions anytime I have the opportunity to do that.
That's all the stuff I have about the Bear for now, so I wanted to shift to some other things, pop culture, I guess, kind of related. Let's talk TV first.
All right.
Who is your favorite Parks and Recreation character?
Oh, my God. Why would you ask the hard-hitting questions?
This is the real shit.
It's such a good ensemble cast. That's a hard question. I don't think that's a fair question.
What about The Office?
I don't know. Should I say this? Should I start this drama? I'd never liked Pam and Jim as a couple. Did not like.
You can get the hell out right now. What's your beef with Pam and Jim?
I didn't like them. I didn't think they were good for each other. I was not really into Pam's character ever. I'm just not into it.
So did you saw that thing from was it BuzzFeed or one of those sites recently where they were like, this is why Pam and Jim were terrible, and Pam should have been with the sound guy.
Oh, the sound guy, yeah.
Did you see that?
I think so. And I really liked Karen and Jim. Everybody gets mad when I say that, but I thought
Oh,
she was
come
way
on.
better for him than Pam.
Well, I mean,
This is going to turn into a whole thing if we go down this
there's
road.
an argument to be made for that, I guess, but at the same time.
I'm going to go back to Parks and Rec. I'm going to say, just so I don't have to pick a real one, I'm just going to say John Ralphio is my favorite.
That's a real one?
Like, tertiary character. Yeah.
That is totally a real one.
He's amazing.
I love everything about John Ralphio. Yeah. At one point, there was, on YouTube, there was a supercut of every time he ever sang. And, of course, NBC had it removed, so now you just have to go through and find them. And, you know, some of them are just like somebody holding their camera up to their iPhone up to the TV, and it looks terrible, but I wish that they would go back and allow that sort of thing.
He's amazing. I don't know about The Office. I was a big fan of Kelly Kapoor. Ryan was, like, despicable in the best way.
In the best way.
I mean, the obvious answer is probably Michael Scott. I don't know. They're all so good. Creed has some of those amazing one-liners.
Yeah, there was definitely some Creed gold in there. Okay, so your favorite, I guess your favorite current albums. Is there anything new that you're listening to?
I haven't been listening to a lot of new stuff. I have, like, the same problem with television that I have with music. I have this number of all-time faves, and I will just rewatch or re-listen to them repeatedly, and then I'm really busy, so I don't watch a lot of new stuff, so I'm having that problem right now.
So the same with music and TV then, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I've got like a handful of shows that are my go-tos, but
yeah, me too.
Sometimes people are like, do you watch this? Do you watch that? I'm like, I don't have any time for anything new.
I know.
Like I barely have time for the handful that I'm devoted to.
Yeah.
And almost the same with music. Like I have to be
yeah.
really open to something. Like I used to just love getting all the new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm just like, I don't know, man.
I know. It's like a chore for some reason.
I don't know. I hate that it's that way, but maybe it's my age or something. But I'm like, I'll listen to what I liked when I was in 1994 when I was a junior in high school.
Yeah. I mean, friends will still send me albums every now and then. They'll be like, oh, this was definitely up your alley, and I'll totally listen to those because they've done the work for me. You know?
Right.
I remember.
It's been vetted.
Yeah. Niles sent me an A.A. Bondi album. This was a while.
Who is Niles? Kidding.
Nobody knows anymore. He sent me that A.A. Bondi album a long time ago, and I'd never heard of him, and I loved that album so much. And he doesn't even make music anymore, apparently, but... Yeah, so friends, if you're out there listening to this, send me stuff that you know that I'll like so that I'll get out of my hole.
So what about your current favorite books? I know you said you read a lot.
Oh, man, this could take a while.
We got no time limit.
I have, again, if you ask me favorite television shows, artists, books, I have my lists in my head that I go to constantly. So my favorite books or authors. I like Murakami a lot. I'll read anything he writes. I'm slowly making my way through his whole catalog. George Saunders, Sylvia Plath, J.D. Salinger, a lot of the classics. I love Hemingway, Southern Gothic stuff, Flannery O'Connor, and if I'm in the mood for something funny, David Sedaris, Every Day. Steve Martin, actually.
Yeah. I
really enjoyed. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a favorite, but I actually surprisingly really enjoyed the last couple things I read by him.
And speaking of the reading stuff, comics. Do you read a lot of new comics, or do you read old comics?
I haven't been reading a lot of new comics. I will read anything Alan Moore ever writes and love it, probably. I can't imagine not loving it. When I was younger, Marvel was just what I could get my hands on, so I read mostly Marvel stuff.
Right.
I've never really read DC, so now I think I just have like a bias against them because their movies have been so shitty. But they had a few that were good. Wonder Woman was...
That's a constant battle in our house, right?
Yeah.
Because my wife, Jamie, who you know, is a total Marvel buff.
Yeah,
in terms of like the movies. Like, she will fight you over the Marvel movies. And my son is a total DC buff.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah. Like, it's funny. He's never read a bunch of the comics, but he had a DC encyclopedia when he was a kid and wore it out.
That's fun.
It out. Like, the cover was ripped off. It was just He couldn't possibly have read it any more times. So he knows the entire DC universe front to back, and he doesn't hate the movies like everybody else seems to. Like, he wasn't huge on Batman versus Superman. He was like,
so bad.
He just he and I both thought that Affleck was a good Bruce Wayne.
Oh my god.
But the rest of it, he was not a big fan of Suicide Squad, etc.
That
But
bad.
every time he and Jamie argue about Marvel DC, I'm just like eating popcorn, just like, this is the best thing I've ever seen ever in my life.
Didn't Alan Moore write Watchmen for DC?
Well, it was for Vertigo, which was
Vertigo. That's right.
It's
that's
a
right.
DC offshoot.
Right.
Um,
I mean, I feel like they redeemed themselves with that one.
right.
I think.
Well, what did you think about the movie?
Eh.
I never read the book. I only saw the movie, and I thought the movie was pretty good.
I think it was good in the way that I think that was one of the first kind of turnarounds of making superhero stuff more dark.
Right.
And I really like that when it's, quote unquote, more realistic,
Right.
So I think that was a good turning point. But yeah, it was. I mean, that graphic novel is just so good. It's hard to like that movie. Plus, knowing how Alan Moore feels about his work being made into movies just kind of makes you feel guilty watching it. V for Vendetta, though, I thought was really good.
I never saw
movie.
it. Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know.
Gotta get on that, man.
A lot wrong with me. So you haven't read a bunch of new comics then, you said?
No, I haven't read a lot. We have a few things here at the library where we are, and I'll pick them up every now and then. When Pegasus was still open, I would go and kind of leaf through to see what was going on with the X-Men nowadays. But
that's what sparked my interest in comics again several years ago. I was in Nashville or something one day, and Eli posted something from the Pegasus page, and it was a comic book of DC Universe versus the Masters of the Universe.
Oh.
So it was like Batman and people versus He-Man, and
oh my god,
it's awesome.
That's too much.
Yeah, I sent him a text. I was like, "Oh my god, please save one of those books for me. I'll be there this afternoon." And so I went in, and he was like, "Do you want me to set you up a pull box?" And I was like, "I don't really read anything else. I haven't read anything since I was in maybe college or early high school." And he's like, "Oh, I'll just pull one for you and every week, or every month when they come out." And then I caught myself like, "Oh, well, I think I'll read this issue of this book." And all of a sudden I was subscribed to like 10 or 15 comics.
Yeah.
And then I had more books than I could read every month because I was, whatever, in over my head. But when I get into something, I'm like all fucking in.
Yeah.
I don't half-ass anything. It's kind of ridiculous. And now I'd like to pause for a moment to share a promo for another great podcast called Not Your Little Lady.
Hey there, it's Allison Carter. I'm the host of the podcast, Not Your Little Lady. Each episode features a woman living in the South outside of socially accepted norms. Listen and relate as these women share stories about obstacles they faced and how it feels to come out on the other side. We talk about things that pissed us off, the booze we like to drink, and historical women who have made a difference. Through all this, we explore the importance of women owning their past, present, and future while keeping it light and funny. You can find episodes, which are released every other Wednesday, on most podcast listening apps or at notyourlittlelady.com. Be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at ladiesofnyll and on Facebook and Instagram at notyourlittlelady. Happy listening, y'all.
But yeah, so also I have a serious question. Why in the hell would you allow Ben Stedman to be in your band?
I hope he never hears this. This is going to cause a serious existential crisis for him. No, I love Ben Stedman. Ben Stedman's family. He's great. I saw him the other day after not seeing him for a while because he's a busy fella. But he was talking about when he met us for the first time, and we played a show at the tavern, and he came up to us afterwards, and he was super drunk, and he was like super complimentary and like hugging us like he knew us, and I was like, I like this guy. Who's this guy?
Yeah.
And
that's Ben.
Yeah, that's Ben. And then I guess we had hung out a few times after that, and then I said, if you knew how to play stand-up bass, I'd have you playing in our band. And then he apparently went out, got a stand-up bass, learned how to play, and then I was like, oh yeah, do this. I think he thinks he tricked us into letting him join, but we were totally happy about it.
That's awesome. Ben's a good dude. Like, I don't remember what sparked it, but when Jamie and I met him, it became this sort of playful, we're always going to pick on each other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I've seen him in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But, like, I'm sure if we were face-to-face right now, we'd probably be giving each other a lot of shit.
Yeah, well, that's classic Ben.
Sounds like it. He's a good dude. He's got those ginger babies that are so precious.
The most beautiful children in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all I have, unless there's anything else you want to just put out there into the world.
Yeah, that's too much pressure. I don't.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in
too long.
a year and a half, probably.
You're in Huntsville now, which is basically like trying to get someone to go from Manhattan to Brooklyn. You know.
Is that what that's like? That'll do it for this episode. We hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks when we'll be featuring Jay Burgess from the Pollies.